So we can start now. Thank you so much on behalf of AIM Summit. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Joumanna Bercetche from Bloomberg Television. I'm speaking to a gentleman who really doesn't need much of an introduction, Eric Trump. We're delighted to have you with us today. There's so much I want to talk about, and luckily we have a good half an hour to get through, and hopefully then we can open it up to Q&A. But I actually want to go back to the very beginning. And when people think about Trump Organization, they associate you with hard assets. They think about your real estate, your properties, your golf courses, the big resorts that you're building around the world. But recently, you've made a big shift into crypto. Why the interest in crypto? Let's start there.
Yeah. Well, Joumanna, thanks, first of all, for having me. And to everybody in Dubai, guys, I love you to death. I think you know how much time I spend in the country. I'm building a big building on Sheikh Zayed right now. I can't wait for you all to see it. It's going to be the most spectacular hotel in all of Dubai, and working a lot of things in the region. So working on an unbelievable hotel, golf course, the hospitality play in Oman. So I spent a lot of time in Oman, spend a lot of time in Saudi, working on projects in Jeddah and 2 projects in Riyadh right now. And right in the old city in Riyadh, really, really exceptional stuff, working on something in Qatar. And obviously we have the golf course there that I run every single day. So I know the region incredibly well, and I'm probably friends with many of the people in this room based on who's in there and the look of it. But guys, it's a great honor to be on. But listen, Joumanna, I've always been a hard asset guy, right? I was put on construction sites when I was 11 years old. I've built skyscrapers all around the world, and we absolutely love hard, tangible real estate. I think it's one of the greatest industries in the world. It's how we built the vast majority of our net worth. We've got some of the greatest hotels, greatest golf hospitality projects, greatest real estate, residential buildings, commercial buildings, retail outlets, from Fifth Avenue to Scotland, from South America, all across Europe, all across Asia, Vietnam, and so many other places, Indonesia. But I came to crypto a couple years ago because honestly, we were getting debanked. We were running through an election in the United States. Our family got into politics, and politics around the world is vicious. And what they tried to do to us was vicious. And all of a sudden, I realized that the same people who were attacking me, the same people who were debanking me for no reason whatsoever, other than the fact that my father was wearing a hat that said, "Make America Great Again," were doing the exact same thing to the crypto people. And many of them became friends. And I realized how incredible this industry was. And Joumanna, I realized it was going to be the greatest hedge against hard assets, right? Hard assets are incredible. They're fixated. They're tangible. They accrete so much value. They're such a great, hedge against inflation around the world, right? There's so many positive attributes. They're great tax shelters. They're, items you can depreciate, for tax purposes. And all of these add to why they're great financial assets, right? Especially if you get great locations and trophy properties. It's a great recipe. On the other side, crypto fixes everything that's wrong with hard assets, right? I mean, I can take $500 million worth of Bitcoin. I can sell it at 1 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday night, and I can do it instantaneously with virtually no fees, with no brokers, with no middleman, with no title companies, with no escrow. And so I really believe that, the crypto assets are the wave of the future. But I do agree. I think that the crypto assets are the greatest hedge to the hard assets in this world, and that's why we're marrying them up. I mean, we are sitting on more Bitcoin at the Trump Organization. We're sitting on more Ethereum. We really believe in the crypto assets with all of our heart, and we again believe it's the greatest hedge against hard property.
Okay, let me pick you up on a couple of those points. First of all, do you still think that the finance industry is being weaponized?
Well, I mean, we've obviously changed a lot of it because the very people who were weaponizing it are no longer in power, right? So. It's a lot harder for them to do it, obviously, with my father in office. But I can tell you it's being weaponized. And you know what, guys? Around the world, I'm not just saying this in the United States. Around the world, it's been weaponized against people for years and years. And that's a shame. It can't happen. But when I'm getting calls from J.P. Morgan Chase, when I'm getting calls from Capital One, congratulations, we'd like to close your bank accounts. I'm saying they're saying, well, what did I do wrong, right? We've got the greatest hospitality company in the world. The only thing that we had done was run an election in the United States. And here's the good news, guys. Traditional finance in 5 years will be dead, right? There's nothing that blockchain can't do better.
In 5 years?
It's changing that rapidly. There's nothing that can't be done better, cheaper, faster, and more transparently on blockchain, right? Why does it take somebody 120 days to go get a residential mortgage? Why is it that for all the business leaders in that room right now, On a Friday afternoon, if you want to send out a wire transfer and you don't send it by 5 p.m. on a Friday, it won't get to the intended recipient, right? That's not modern finance. Modern finance is instantaneous. Modern finance is cheap. Modern finance cuts out the middleman. Modern finance allows you to not get, absolutely crushed by FX conversion fees, right? There's nothing that the traditional banking system is doing efficiently, is doing smart, is doing cheap, is doing transparently. And I'm telling you, and forget about the United States, the greatest, capitalistic country in the world. Right? Look at all the other powers in the world. Look at all the other countries in the world where, imagine investing in Zimbabwe, where you have 1,000% inflation. And by the time you get your paycheck, you may as well set it on fire and burn it because it's gone. Now, all of a sudden, using cryptocurrency, using stablecoins, you can instantly go into the currency of your choice. You can instantly be pegged to the United States dollar, backed 1-to-1 by U.S. treasuries. I'm telling you, it's going to change the face of finance. And that's why the big banks are embracing it as quickly as they are.
Yeah.
And the banks that don't are going to get left behind.
Yeah. So, there definitely has been a move, at least for Bitcoin, to become a lot more mainstream. You have the ETFs facilitating that, but it is not fully mainstream. What do you think are the hurdles that are in place right now that is not allowing that to happen?
Yeah. Joumanna, I probably disagree that it's not mainstream at this point. I would have probably agreed with you a year ago or 18 months ago that it wasn't mainstream. Reverse 5 years. The only way you could have actually really gotten, call it Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency was actually using a hard ledger. And that's a hard process. It lost a lot of people, right? Now, all of a sudden, you have every single ETF. You can buy American Bitcoin. So American Bitcoin is my company. We mine some of the cheapest Bitcoin anywhere in the world. We're mining Bitcoin right now for roughly 50 cents on the dollar. So price of Bitcoin is roughly $110,000. We're mining for roughly 50% of that, and we're mining a lot of it every day. We're doing out of West Texas using American energy. You could buy American Bitcoin stock on the Nasdaq, and you can have full play exposure to American Bitcoin. You can buy ETFs. You can buy them in 401ks. You can custody it through so many banks right now. You can buy it on CeFi, on centralized finance, whether it's Coinbase or Robinhood or Tron or Binance or Kraken. I could go on and on. I could go down that list for 20 minutes of different exchanges. But if you have equities, if you have a stock account, for the first time, you can buy Bitcoin. You can buy full play exposure to Bitcoin. And so it's not fringe anymore. It's mainstream. And what's really amazing is, you have companies like Fidelity. Fidelity in the United States probably has 40% of the 401ks, which is our retirement accounts, is our savings accounts. Now, all of a sudden, if you have a savings account at Fidelity, you can buy Bitcoin. You can custody Bitcoin on their platform. That's happening with Charles Schwab. That's happening with JP Morgan Chase. You see what BlackRock's doing every single day. And so the avenues to buy Bitcoin are massive. And guys, right now, the cryptocurrency industry is roughly where the internet was in 1999. 1999, right? It's growing faster than the internet was growing. You better believe that it's going to overtake conventional finance. And Dubai should be so proud of itself, and the UAE should be so proud of it. You're literally, other than America, you're leading the way. You're leading the way. America and the UAE in the world, by far, hands down, are the two countries that are doing the absolute best with cryptocurrency. I would put South Korea probably as the third. But honestly, your leadership over there has been absolutely incredible, and the way your culture and country has embraced cryptocurrency is amazing, and it's been amazing to see.
There's definitely a big community of crypto believers over here. Eric, since you mentioned American Bitcoin, I want to ask you about that. You have a 7.5% stake in American Bitcoin. What is the ultimate vision, and how does it distinguish itself from other digital asset accumulators out there? Because many of them have been having a pretty rough ride as of late.
Yeah. Well, I think we're different in that, we are mining Bitcoin, right? So as I said before, every single day we mine a lot of Bitcoin. We have the biggest facilities, some of the biggest facilities in the world, all liquid cooled, state of the art. We're mining every day, and we're mining that asset for roughly 50 cents on the dollar, right? And no one else can do that. We also accumulate over here. If you look back at Bitcoin, over the last 10 years, it's been the fastest growing asset, right? It's gone up roughly 70% a year over year for the last decade. It's funny, people are like, oh, well, Bitcoin over the last couple of weeks has been capitulating slightly. It's come down, $10,000, roughly $10,000. I was telling people this time last year to buy Bitcoin, and it was $55,000, $60,000, right? So the run of Bitcoin has been absolutely amazing, and that's not stopping. The biggest families, the biggest pension funds, the biggest Fortune 500 companies, the biggest family offices, the biggest real estate companies are all treasuring Bitcoin right now. And by the way, I know all of them over in the UAE, and I can't tell you how many of them are doing it over there. And obviously, everybody in this room does as well. And there's not a day that goes by where you don't see another article in the Wall Street Journal where a major Fortune 500 U.S. company isn't putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. It's become that asset. Second of all, so you have that dynamic. Second of all, you have every private wealth manager for the first time that's not only allocating 2% of Bitcoin, to cryptocurrencies of portfolios of savings accounts, but now for the first time is recommending 4, 5, 6% into those. So the demand for Bitcoin is going to go parabolic.
Yeah.
But we also do the treasury concept over here, Joumanna, right? And no different than anybody else. The difference is everybody else has to buy a spot price. We can buy a spot price, run the treasury strategy at the same time. We can mine over here and we can dollar cost average. So we will always have the lowest cost Bitcoin. That is my single goal. We will always have the lowest cost Bitcoin because no one else has the ability to do what we're doing on the mining front. They don't have the energy. They don't have the facilities. They don't have the compute power. So we're just doing it better than all of them. And I think that's our massive differentiator.
I'm going to pin you down to a price target because, journalist, I have to. But, Novogratz was speaking recently about this sort of 100,000 to 125,000 range that Bitcoin has been in. But he said recently that a breakout could come if fiscal or regulatory catalysts align.
Yeah.
Do you believe that's going to happen? And if so,
Yes.
what does that look like and where does Bitcoin get to?
Oh, I have no doubt it's going to happen. I've never been more certain in my life. I'm putting everything into this venture and into cryptocurrencies in general. First of all, it makes sense because it's the wave of the future. Second of all, the speed of growth of the industry is astronomical. Third of all, if just look back 12 months. I mean, we are double the price in a 12-month period of time. People, cryptocurrency, people have a very short memory. In real estate, people have a very long memory. It's kind of amazing. You'll get to 125,000 and it'll draw back $10,000. And everybody goes, is this the end? And then guess what? 3 weeks later, it'll shoot up another 30%, and then it'll draw back another 5%. And then, people do the same exercise again. No, it's remarkable. I mean, 2.5 years ago, I had friends yelling at me, hey, it's too expensive. It was, $40,000. I go, guys, buy. And then they come to me when it's $80,000. It's too expensive. I say, guys, buy. And then they come to me when it's $120,000, and they say it's too expensive, and I say, buy. And every single time, I'm right. And by the way, these are small periods of time. So I've never been more bullish in my life. And when you're talking to the wealthiest families on earth, and when you're talking to the biggest sovereign wealth funds, and when you're talking to cities, and there's one not too far away from you guys who literally take the excess power of an entire city during the winter when they don't need it to actually cool their commercial buildings and residential buildings, and they use that for Bitcoin mining, you better believe that this thing is going in the right direction. And it's been amazing to watch, and I'm really proud to be at the forefront of it.
Price target?
Oh, price target. Target. I'm so sorry. Listen, Joumanna, I've always said that I think it's going to go past $1 million in time. I mean, it's going to take a number of years to get there, but I think it's going to go past $1 million. This year, we'll see. We're going to have quantitative easing, obviously in the United States, which is big. But listen, you have to look at it as a global asset. And what Bitcoin does is it gives security to all those people around the world that don't have security. If you live on the African continent, for the most part, you don't have security. If you live in Asia, for the most part, you don't have a whole lot of security, right? There's a lot of variables that could otherwise come and influence your money and make that money illiquid, make that money non-transferable. Same thing with South America. Bitcoin is the answer for all of those people. And, I've always said that I think we're going to be at $200,000 before we blink, whether it's the end of the year, whether it's first quarter next year. I think we're going to be at $200,000 very, very quickly.
Okay. Thank you for answering that question. I've read various reports suggesting that the Trump family has more wealth tied up in crypto now than in real estate. Is that correct?
Don't believe everything you read on. No,
I know. That's why I'm asking you. I'm going straight to the source. The source.
It's funny. A lot of times, listen, Joumanna, I'm not trying to insult your industry, so bear with me. But I think the people in this room will find it pretty funny. the average business reporter knows nothing about business. No disrespect to the media community, right? So
Ouch.
they'll talk about the cash flows. I see my friend in the front row there on the left-hand side clapping. So I love you very much, my friend. So thank you for that. But no, listen, it's true, right? The cash flows from real estate versus the cash flows from crypto. Yeah, if you make $1 billion in a year in cryptocurrency, it's going to be pretty hard for a hotel to throw that out, especially when you're doing CapEx every day and you're keeping them to the standard that we keep our properties to. At the same time, the intrinsic value of hard assets isn't cash flow. And this is something that reporters just don't ever understand, right? And so, you could go take Mar-a-Lago and you could sell Mar-a-Lago for $2 billion, right? I wouldn't look at the fact that it throws off X dollars of cash flow every year, right? And that's why the diversity of the two product types is a beautiful thing for hard asset, people. It's, real estate, you want something that's efficient. You want something that appreciates in value. You want something that's got very low volatility, right? Crypto is the opposite, right? Crypto is liquid. It's got extremely high volatility, but it's got extremely high growth and extremely high cash flow. That's a perfect marriage. When you can marry low vol, steady, secure, high growth with high vol, it's a recipe that's it's made for each other. There's no better complement. And right now, every single day in the United States, you're seeing more and more companies. They're doing walk up. Grant Cardone's a great example of this in the United States, where they're literally marrying real estate with cryptocurrency, mainly Bitcoin, to otherwise take down the yield. So effectively they'll have cash flow come out of property. They'll have $1 million in cash flow come out of property. They take that, they buy Bitcoin, they treasury that Bitcoin. That Bitcoin's growing faster than the interest rates of those projects. And guess what? They run that arbitrage to otherwise buy down yields. And so that's happening more and more in the United States. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that happen around the world.
So given that the Trump family has some degree of wealth tied up in crypto, some degree, you haven't given me a figure. What do you say to suggestions that there is a conflict of interest, that, at the same time that President Trump and his administration are adopting crypto-friendly policies, the Trump family, the Trump organization is also making a lot of money from being involved in these crypto ventures?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I got involved in crypto because I was debanked by everybody and I didn't have a damn choice. All because we have radical people in this country that try to, hurt every aspect of us. I got involved in all of these ventures long before my father ever rewon the presidency. So that's first and foremost. Second of all, we need to win the crypto revolution. Like, what are we going to do? Just not pursue cryptocurrency, which is modern day finance, and let China win that game? We're not going to allow that to happen. We're going to win that game. Third of all, I have nothing to do with the administration. I stay as far away from the administration, Washington, D.C. as humanly possible because I'm a capitalist and I believe in business. I'm very far away from Hunter Biden, right? Like, I've never been the guy who's, gone out and been finger painting and selling it to nationals all over the world for profits. That's not us. I mean, I've been in proper commerce for the last 25 years, and we're exceptionally good at what we do. And so there is no conflict of interest. America better lead the way in terms of crypto, currency. My father's been the biggest proponent of this, again, long before he even ran for the second term. And I'm so proud that America's winning. I'm proud that we're winning on the energy front. I'm proud that we're winning the digital finance front. I'm glad that we're winning the stablecoin front. And by the way, I'm really glad that we're doing it with the UAE because, I mean, in terms of kind of modernizing finance, guys, we're doing it together, and I mean that wholeheartedly. It's largely the effort of our two countries that are allowing this new revolution in the world, and I think we should both be very proud of that.
Okay, I'm going to get to UAE in a second. I also want to ask you about the World Liberty Financial Token that started trading last month, and I wonder, again, how much of the appeal to buy that token, which has, by the way, been quite volatile since it started trading, how much of the appeal is getting exposure to Trump and Trump family, i.e., the brand Trump, as opposed to investing in an asset with long-term properties that will be additive to one's portfolio?
Well, listen, on the World Liberty side, I think we're building the greatest DeFi platform in the world, and we have the fastest growing stablecoin on earth right now. USD1 is the fastest growing stablecoin on earth, right? Everybody wants a US dollar. So Joumanna, in Europe, they proposed a European-based stablecoin, only half of 1% of all Europeans were willing to buy a European-denominated stablecoin. Everybody wants the US dollar. It doesn't matter if you're in Africa. It doesn't matter if you're in South America. It doesn't matter if you're in Asia. Everybody wants the US dollar. It's a beautiful thing. Stablecoins are a beautiful thing. And by the way, it provides financial freedom to a lot of people around the world who otherwise don't have a chance, who don't have a good currency, who have corrupt governments, who have unstable financial systems, who have poor banking regulations. I'm not talking about the UAE, clearly. I'm talking about the vast majority of countries around the world. And guess what all those countries want? They want an instrument digitally, because you know what? This is their bank in so many of these countries, their phone. They want an instrument that's pegged 1-to-1 against the United States dollar that gives them safety, security, so their money just doesn't disappear in the middle of the night. So their money isn't just confiscated in the middle of the night. Stable coins are incredibly powerful, and you're seeing them being used more and more. And every single day, again, you see another massive online platform onboarding stable coins. That is how money is going to flow in the not too distant future. I would bet every ounce of my body to short the SWIFT system and embrace the stablecoin system, because stablecoins is going to win. 24 hours a day, virtually no fees, instantaneous. If somebody in that room right there has my friend in the front row who was clapping a second ago, if he has a beautiful watch and I want to buy it, he can text message me a link, his wallet. I can send him money. It will show up within a second of us talking. I could do it literally while we're in this conference. And then the next afternoon, the watch could be in a FedEx and it could be heading overseas. Try and do that with conventional banks. If I had to go to JP Morgan Chase to try and link up with the greatest bank in Dubai, and then he has to go down to his branch, and then 12 people have their fingers in the transaction, so you lose all your money. You have massive currency conversion fees in there and everything else. That's not modern day finance. Stablecoin is modern day finance. And by the way, it's not just in terms of consumer practices. It's going to be how we trade commodities. It's going to be how we trade oil. It's going to be how we trade art. It's going to be how virtually everything is going to be tokenized in some way, shape, or form. I'm going out 5-10 years, but there's no question that that's the way of the future. And there's no question that stablecoin is winning that game. And most specifically, American stablecoins. And so I'm very proud of World Liberty Financial, and I'm proud of what we're building over there.
Yeah. Do you have a view on meme coins? I mean, a recent it's said recently, the issuance of over 13 million meme coins in 2025. That's just the issuance, right? I mean, it's a crazy number. Signals crypto's regulatory vacuum. It's a need for U.S. market structure legislation to pass. What is your view on the sheer number of meme coins that are out there today?
I wish Barron Trump were in the seat right now, because he loves the meme coins. And here's what I find. I mean, I find a lot of young guys who love meme coins. Listen, I have older friends that do too. I also have the degenerate friends, and we all have them. Everybody in the audience has the degenerate friends who love betting on the soccer games and the football games and everything else, right? I mean, they'll bet on the coin flips at halftime. They'll bet on what the cheerleaders are going to wear, right? We all have those friends who are excited by just something new. And so the meme coins have been amazing. Here's what I'll tell you about the meme coins. A lot of people disparage them, but it gets a lot of people into cryptocurrency. It gets a lot of people to understand how money works and how we can do so in a safe, deregularized, environment, in whether it's DeFi, or now you can buy a lot of the meme coins, obviously, in CeFi. But it gets people to appreciate what Ethereum is. It gets people to appreciate what Bitcoin is and the inherent value of it. It makes them understand the monetary system. And so, meme coins really do become kind of the jumping in point to real cryptocurrency for a lot of people. And I think that's ultimately, additive to the ecosystem. I really do. And then there's a lot of people who just have fun with it. And that's great. Mm-hmm. If you happen to love Trump, right, and you want to go, spend $200 and you want to buy, the Trump meme coin, which, by the way, went absolutely parabolic. It's the most, successful, certainly meme coin in the history of crypto. Go have fun, go enjoy your life, and I don't think that should be discouraged.
What if you end up losing money?
Well, you know what? You can lose money on a lot of things. There's people who go out to a club at night and they buy a $2,000 bottle of vodka, and honestly, Joumanna, they're no better for it. Money is pissed away every single day by people on senseless causes. So, whether you lose it vis-a-vis meme coins or you lose it based on any other extracurricular hobby, and there are many extracurricular hobbies, That's life. Like, if you don't want to lose money, then make better investment choices. And by the way, you know how much money has been made in meme coins? You had people who were worth $3 who are billionaires now because of meme coins, because they got it right and they were really smart and they picked the right horse. In life, once in a while, you have to pick the right horse, right? And so the whole
Yeah.
what happens if you lose money routine, well, guess what? Don't, make better decisions.
Mhm. Or invest an amount that you're willing to lose, basically. I mean, you have to,
I mean,
size
listen,
your positions.
hey,
Yeah.
Joumanna, congratulations. You can also go buy T-bills right now, and
Yeah.
you can make 3% a year, and you can lose to inflation around the world, and congratulations. It's like, I would consider that losing money as well. So I would actually say that oftentimes investing in a meme coin that might be speculation but might have real upside return might actually be a better investment if you're starting at nothing and are trying to make it. But again, I digress.
Okay, I want to ask you. We've spoken about the UAE and your, strong belief in the ecosystem over here and the sort of ecosystem that authorities have very intentionally set up to help the cryptocurrency community thrive. I also want to ask you about energy, right? Because I remember there was this period a couple of years ago where everyone was talking about how much energy consumption Bitcoin mining was going to use, and now we talk about it in the context of data centers and AI.
Yep.
But do you think that is also one of the reasons that the UAE stands out because of the efficiency of the energy supply and because of the long-term thinking vis-a-vis energy security?
Yeah, great question. Guys, it is the best advantage that America and the UAE has. We have unlimited in the United States. We're a massive country. Obviously, we've got the best oil. We've got the best natural gas in the world. And by the way, so do you. It is the single greatest advantage we have. Go try and mine Bitcoin in Scotland. Good luck, all right? Your cost per coin is going to be about $12 million, right? I'm saying that facetiously. And I own property in Scotland. I'm not trying to demean their society, but they've got the worst energy policy in the world. Go do that in the vast majority of Europe, at least Western Europe, right? And you'll never be able to make a profit. Go try and orchestrate AI in those places, and it's the same thing. The actual cost of energy, you might be able to make it work, but the cost of energy is astronomical relative to what it is in the UAE, relative to what it is in America. And so I actually think our two countries have the greatest opportunity on Earth to make a difference in those two spaces, whether it's the crypto industry or whether it's artificial intelligence. We've got the best energy. We've got the cheapest energy. We have smart leaders. We've got the smartest leaders who want to exploit energy, who want to have the lowest cost energy. And it's not just for compute. It's not just for mining. It's for industry. It's for everyone, right? I mean, energy at the end of the day just becomes a massive tax on society. You watch GDP growth and you track GDP growth around the world. You know where GDP growth is the fastest? The places that have the cheapest and best and most reliable energy. It's just that simple. The UAE is winning, and America's winning in that game, and that's why we're going to win the crypto revolution, and that's why American Bitcoin mines Bitcoin in West Texas, where energy is, the cheapest anywhere in the world, or among the cheapest anywhere in the world.
So we're coming up to half an hour. I know we spent most of the conversation talking about crypto and your various ventures. I do want to ask you about gold as well, because a lot of money has rotated away from the USD this year. The dollar is down 10% into gold, into crypto, into Bitcoin. Gold is up more than 60% this year. Do you have a view on gold as well, on the interchangeability here also?
Yeah, I think gold is an amazing asset. But I think it's plagued with real problems, right? I think it's been the greatest store of value for a very long time. It's had an incredible run, and now actually you're seeing a lot of that value come out of gold and come back into crypto, right? You're seeing that almost every day. Gold's plagued with a couple problems. Again, great store of value, but how do you move it? How do you sell it? I mean, if you have the tangible product, go take a gold bar and walk through JFK with it, right? Like, zero chance, right? They're going to stop you and they're going to think you're a drug smuggler or a money launderer, and they'll probably throw you in jail, even though it's your own currency, no matter how pure it is. It just, and then what do? Do you take that hard physical metal, meaning assuming you're not buying it on exchange or vis-a-vis an ETF, et cetera? What do you do when you want to cash it out? Do you take it to a smelter? You melt it down and turn it into something? The point that I'm making is gold is an amazing store of value, but there's nothing that cryptocurrency can't do better, more efficiently, right? I mean, again, using my example before, if I want to take $1 billion of Bitcoin and I want to liquidate it, I can do so within the next 30 seconds. You couldn't do that if you had the hard commodity that is otherwise gold. If I wanted to travel from here to the UAE with $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, I could do so by either remembering a phrase or having a flash drive. What do? Load up a cargo ship, with gold. And so, listen, I believe in gold. I believe in it as a store of value. I believe in the digital asset, the digital gold, which is Bitcoin. I believe in it more, and I think ultimately it's going to win the race. And over the last decade, Bitcoin has certainly won the race, right? I mean, it's up again 70% year over year, and I think the best of Bitcoin is yet to come.
Okay. I'm going to round up with one question because you mentioned like the guy walking through JFK holding his gold bar, but there are plenty of bad actors in the space as well. They're bad actors in crypto, fraudsters, they're money launderers. There are plenty of high profile cases where actually the whole thing has collapsed because of fraud. How do you ensure that bad actors aren't given too much of a prominent role in crypto?
Yeah, Joumanna, I mean, there's bad actors everywhere. Crypto doesn't make somebody a bad actor. In fact, crypto is substantially more transparent because you can see everything on the blockchain than traditional finance. I mean, go tell that to Bernie Madoff, right? Here was a bad actor who wasn't exactly involved with crypto. You and I could sit here for 20 minutes and list bad actors around the world in terms of financial transactions, and the vast majority of them have nothing to do with crypto. So I actually think that crypto is substantially more transparent than any bank. You can track every crypto transaction. That's why it works. It's all viewable on blockchain. You can't change it. You can't hide it. You can't shelter it. You can see it. It's all transparent. And so, listen, I'm the biggest advocate of every industry policing itself. And by having serious players in industries like me and so many of the other people who are in the crypto industry, you better believe that we're going to be policing that industry because we don't want bad actors. No different than we don't want bad actors in real estate. If you have a scumbag who's taking people's deposits in real estate, and running off to the Maldives and you never ever see them again, you know what that does to the Dubai real estate community? That makes everybody look terrible. And that's why those communities police those people. And obviously in crypto, if there's a bad actor, you need to police it. But I would actually say that crypto allows you to be more transparent than just about any other industry because of the nature of blockchain. And by the way, you can't even point to crypto versus conventional financing. I could sit here for 2 hours and point out the scumbags in traditional finance and how much money they've taken and stolen. To somehow interject that on cryptocurrency would be dishonest. I actually think you have some of the best players in crypto, not the worst.
Eric, well, this is a great way to end our conversation. I also want to say, given you love the UAE so much, next time we need to do this in person. I know the AIM organizers are speaking to you about having you here in person next year. So maybe we can make this happen actually physically.
Come on, I'd love it. I would love it.
So what we're going to do now is I'm going to open it up to a couple of questions. I'm actually going to field the questions myself because of microphone challenges, I guess. And then I'll put them to you. So if anyone does have a question, I'm going to stand up. Gentleman in the front, and then we'll take one from the back. Is there anyone from the back? No? Okay, you. So you and you, please.
Thank you.
How are you, my friend?
Good morning, Eric. Good to see you. So it's been recently discovered that the Cayman Islands, lots of hedge funds in the Cayman Islands, actually own the most US debt. It's about $1.85 trillion. Now, they're running a basis trade at the moment, which is profitable. There is a risk that it may become unprofitable and that entire structure unravels, which would put further pressure on the dollar. What are your thoughts in terms of Bitcoin tokenization, fractionalization, in terms of hedging the risk of further sell pressure on the dollar? And is that risk tangible risk? And what do you think may be some of the drivers to, the drivers that might precipitate that risk materializing?
Hi, Eric. How are you? Tom from Rothbergs. Eric, I really like the last statement you made. In the past, regulators used to be experienced business people who then joined to sort of bring about a gold standard to the industry. How do you think regulation can be saved in the US? You did mention that, look, it's hell transferring money. We're a law firm. We know all about it. But how do you think regulation can be rescued to something more amenable and potentially be able to challenge crypto's dominance?
So a few things. First of all, America's leading the way. I mean, they're different questions and maybe they're the same. So I'm going to do my best to try and answer these, together. It might have been easier to do, one after the other. But America's leading the revolution in terms of certainly regulation, right? I mean, there was no regulation. The Biden administration was incompetent. I mean, the guy didn't know what he ate for breakfast, let alone understand the intricacies of regulating, cryptocurrencies. And what's happened is they've had a lot of smart people who have come together with a lot of work, frankly, of a lot of companies out of the UAE and out of the rest of the world who put together a framework, and that's what everybody in crypto wanted. It's just tell us the rules of the road and we're going to follow them, but just don't give us ambiguity, right? And I think that's, as a law firm, that's probably what you were seeing. There's a lot of ambiguity. There's no real answers, and everybody wanted answers. America created this narrow framework. And everybody fits within it. And what's happening is all around the world, people are copying it now, right? I mean, some of the legislation that's come out of the UAE has copied it. You look at Vietnam, 6 weeks ago, Vietnam was saying absolutely no cryptocurrency. And now all of a sudden they want to be adopting the US policy because they put in regulation. I think that's great. So what America has done by kind of leading the way as a superpower and just respected people, and people who have obviously put real thought into doing this, has created a framework for the entire world. And I think that framework is going to become the basis of which most companies operate. Normally, if it's good enough for the US, it's good enough for them. And I think that's happening. You mentioned the Cayman Islands, in the first question, are you worried about the US dollar? Listen, I want the US dollar to perform exceedingly well. I'm not worried about the US dollar. The reason I believe in cryptocurrency is I worry about everybody else's dollar. And I'm not talking about the UA. I'm not signaling out, good, highly productive, highly profitable countries, right? I'm talking about the bottom 95%, and it probably is 95%, right? It might even be larger than that, of countries that don't stand a chance. Their currencies are nonsense. Their governments are unstable. There is massive corruption. There's corruption in the governments, there's corruption in the finance industry, there's corruption at the banks, right? One day you can walk into your local branch and your money, poof, is gone. That's what cryptocurrency solves for. I actually think the thing that cryptocurrency solves for the least is the US dollar. I would make a much stronger case for virtually every country in the world to be buying cryptocurrency over their own personal currencies or countries' currencies, because it will outperform every single time. And again, it will do it safer. It will do it more transparently than ever before. Go down to Argentina, especially before Milei, but go down to Argentina. You had 70% inflation every year. People didn't want the peso. You know what they wanted? They wanted the US dollar. You weren't even allowed to have the US dollar in the country, and yet the US dollar is what everybody used to do business. Why? They couldn't stand their own currency. Their currency was devaluing every single day. It wasn't a good store of value. So they wanted the US dollar, even though it was illegal and it was hard to move and it was hard to get, and there was a premium associated with it. That's what cryptocurrency is, right? A cryptocurrency is and by the way, and stable coins certainly are the cryptocurrency that's going to be denominated on the US dollar, but will be the greatest hedge against the very instability of those countries. And by the way, you know what that does? That gives people financial freedom. And so America is leading the way in terms of the dollar, and it's not even close, right? Go to China. What is every wealthy Chinese business person looking for? They're not trying to get their own currency. You know what they're looking for? They're looking for the US dollar. I'm not worried about the US dollar. We're so far ahead and everybody wants it. I do think that cryptocurrency solves the problem for the vast majority of other people who are not on the US dollar and want some safe harbor, against, frankly, a broken financial system that they have in their respective countries that just doesn't work anymore.
I can give you a personal testimony for that. My husband is Argentinian. Every time I go to Argentina, people ask me for advice on Bitcoin. I'm like, I don't really think I'm the right person to give you advice, but certainly a lot of interest over there. So a question over here, then Alex as well. Okay.
Eric, thanks so much for the amazing presentation. We actually, Swissborg, we're a launch partner of the Wolfie token. So on day one, so glad to support you in your initiative.
Thank you.
Listen, I have a huge question. And even my aunt, who worked for Morgan Stanley her entire life, is very confused because we have headwinds, we have tailwinds, where we are in the market. I did a personal hypothesis, would love to get your honest feedback on saying that I believe this is like the post-recovery of the .com era. So not the .com bubble based on the adoption curve that you were mentioning earlier. because we have a dual tech boom. We have AI and we have cryptocurrencies, but a lot of people are scared where we are on the market because of the volatility. I'd love to hear where we're at with the financial cycle and where do you see us going next year?
Yeah. Well, guys, I'm slightly biased in saying this, but I think we have the greatest president America has ever seen, and you better believe if there's one thing my father knows, it's the economy. We came off a person who couldn't spell economy, and we came off a vice president who couldn't spell AI. Legitimately, Kamala couldn't spell AI, and so, I think we have that wind at our back in a very big way. Second of all, we're going into a cycle that's quantitative easing. Obviously, we're probably going to have another 3 rate cuts, in the United States. So that's massively beneficial. And that's not just beneficial to large caps. Obviously, it can be. It's really beneficial to small caps because if you think about it, they're much more reliant on debt in our nation than obviously the large. The Apples of the world. They're sitting on hundreds of billions of dollars in cash, and they're flush and they can do whatever the hell they want. Small caps, family businesses, etc. Are reliant on debt. Even private industries are all reliant on debt. And as you start seeing the cost of debt come down, that does a tremendous amount for the economy. Third, we had the Big Beautiful Bill, but a lot of the parts of the Big Beautiful Bill, I think, have been overlooked, by most people, most reporters who never decide to talk about it. One of the big things in the United States is bonus depreciation, where for every dollar of CapEx you put in, so you own a commercial building, you put $100,000, you rebuild a kitchen, right? Day one, you can capitalize that, you can expense it, and you get 100% bonus depreciation. So that becomes an instantaneous, tax write-off. So effectively, your capital projects it's not quite 50%, but they cost you about 50% as they would have, before, because again, you might pay par, but you get 50% back, in terms of taxable benefit. I think that's what that's going to do to stimulus in our economy is going to be massive. I think what that's going to do for every contractor, every Home Depot, every 2x4, every piece of building material, I think we're going to rebuild our country and rebuild our businesses based on capital expenditure. Fourth, my father is literally, people want to come out and they want to build a power plant in the United States of America. He guarantees them they're going to have their approval in a 1-week period of time to do it. Right? The amount of jobs that's going to create, the amount of industry that's going to create, and that's across the board. So, regulation is something that often plagues countries. Europe is by far the worst. They're like way over here. America's like, pretty good, but it's clearly not you guys where you snap your fingers and everything gets done. That's a beautiful system, but we're much closer to you than we are Europe. But the deregulation is just allowing a massive amount of obviously projects and innovation to kind of take place. So I think that's really going to help bolster the markets as well. Last but not least, if you actually look at earnings, everybody talks about companies, U.S. companies being expensive, et cetera. Yet you look at their earnings. Their earnings haven't fallen. Their earnings are shattering every single record. Like most of the time, you see earnings start falling, and those that hasn't happened over here yet. In fact, earnings are as strong as they've ever been, and so I think we've got a lot of tailwinds. I've never been more bullish on America. I've never been more bullish on AI. I've never been more bullish on crypto. I think we're winning the technological advantage, and I think we're setting ourselves as a nation up for the next 20 years because once that power is in place, once you have low cost power, you have 98% of the equation, right? Then it's just having the best entrepreneurs that know how to build the actual software and the widgets and the technology, which American entrepreneurs can do better than anybody in the world as well, or if not better than anywhere in the world. I'm not worried against that race against China so long as we have that energy component, right? And so long as we're deregulated enough that we can compete. If we can compete one against one, we're going to win every single time. It's why our country is 340 million people, and we've got a $32.5 trillion economy, versus China, which is 1.5 billion people, and it's got a $22.5 trillion economy. We're going to win that race so long as we have the right variables in place. And because we have the right leadership, we have those right variables. I think America is getting better every single day, and I've never been more bullish on our country. And frankly, one other thing, I've never been more bullish on the UAE because I truly say this. And I spend a lot of time there. I'm there 5-6 times a year. There is no country in the world that is doing it better and smarter than And I started in the UAE in 2006, before it even remotely, before Dubai or Abu Dhabi even remotely looked what it looked like today. It was 1/200th of the size. And what you've been able to do there is nothing short of spectacular. And everybody from the UAE should give yourself a massive round of applause because you've done an exceptional job. And last but not least, I'm sorry, Joumanna, because I know you're going to kill me.
It's okay.
I would argue that the UAE has become a better ally to America than all the allies. And I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. Bloomberg, Joumanna, your people are probably going to kill me like they always do. But I would argue that the UAE is to become a better ally to the US than 99% of European countries, who always claim to have this great allegiance with the US, albeit, every day they ripped us off in terms of trade policy and everything else. The UAE should be incredibly proud of itself. You are an amazing country. You are amazing people. I adore you. We adore you. It's why I do so much over there. And I think your future is bright. And I think America's future is bright. And I think our future is incredibly bright together.
Eric, I think that's the least controversial thing you said about the strong relationship between the UAE and US.
You better believe, Joumanna. I'm going to get some article. I'm going to get some article from Bloomberg later on saying Eric says that the UK isn't the strongest. That's not obviously what I said, but you better believe somebody will say that about me. But that's okay.
Okay, look, we're going to take two more questions. Did you want to ask your question?
Yeah.
Two more, and then we're done. Yeah.
Eric, hi. Great to meet you. Love your energy. And I'm also a massive crypto fan, so really appreciate that. But my question is actually about politics. So have you and your siblings discussed who is going to run for president next? And which of you is it going to be?
This question.
Which of you is it going to be? And I'd like the truth here, please.
Yeah. I nominate anybody other than me. No, guys, listen, I kid. I think we've all developed a great voice. And my grandmother, I have this 99-year-old grandmother. She's amazing, amazing woman. And she always says, how many steaks can you eat? That's her favorite saying. How many steaks can you eat? And, believe me, the last thing our family needed to do was get into politics. Monetarily, we didn't need to get into politics. In fact, my father, I think, is the only president who hasn't made money based on, Obama went from a community organizer to having the biggest house on Martha's Vineyard. Our family needed politics and the indictments and the subpoenas and everything else like a hole in the head. At the same time, we want to save the United States of America. We've got the greatest country on earth, and we want to save it. And my father has done that, and I never left that stage. I love it. So, my kids would have to be in the right spot for it. My family would have to be on the right spot for it. I've seen the most beautiful sides of politics. I've also seen brutality, the likes of which no one's ever seen. In fact, last night, about 4 hours ago, this book went to #1, Under Siege, right? It's about how they tried to destroy us, how they tried to destroy our family, how they tried to imprison us, how they tried to bankrupt us, how they, made up the dirty dossiers and the Russia hoaxes. They took us off the ballots. They took us off of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. They tried to destroy our lives. And despite all of that, we beat them. We beat them at our own games, and we did so overwhelmingly. And so, listen, I think if this country was ever in a really bad spot, and I was at the right point in my life, I think I'd give it a whirl. But at the same time, again, I've seen the evilness of politics, and that's not just a U.S. thing. That's around the world. It's brutal, and you better have a family that's ready to punch back. Better have a family that's ready to fight, and you better be willing to sacrifice it all. And if that time ever came, it's a possibility. I'd never rule out anything, but it's certainly a real decision. That much I can tell you. It's certainly a real decision.
How about the headline? I'll give it a whirl.
I'll give politics a whirl.
Yeah. Is that a good headline?
I like that. I'll give it a whirl. I like that headline. That's good. That's
okay.
fair.
Let's take one last question. Gentleman over.
Hey, Eric. Sam Benny, I actually co-founded the first stablecoin UAE with Sheikh Al-Mal a decade ago, so I know one or two things about stablecoins and cryptos. But if I be a devil's advocate around Bitcoin, what do you think about quantum computers and the quantum potential attack towards Bitcoin? Because it's very hard to be able to update the hashes. So what do you think? Do you think that we have an immediate threat within the next 5 years?
Yeah. Not really, and here's why. Let me just give you if quantum, first of all, Bitcoin obviously runs on a totally different framework than iOS or your traditional compute. It's a totally different framework, right? And the amount of exahash obviously protecting this framework is massive. You can't just go in and take a separate computer that has nothing to do with Bitcoin mining and try and mine, right? It doesn't work. They're totally different networks. And so you would need to take that quantum, you'd have to gear it toward BTC, and then you need to throw massive amounts of energy at it. I think it's maybe a little bit far-fetched in the next 3, 4, 5 years. Here's what I'll tell you, right? Back up. if quantum comes out the way they say quantum does, then congratulations, Amazon has no chance. Amazon's gone 1,000 times before Bitcoin because the amount of energy securing the Bitcoin network is 1,000 times that of Amazon. Microsoft is gone, Dell is gone, the US Pentagon is gone, Walmart's gone. You know, every government computer in the UAE is gone, right? I mean, if you look at, you know, what are we at right now? 980 exahash, something like that, close to 1,000 exahash of Bitcoin compute superpower. I mean, you know, just our company, you know, is about 3% of the Bitcoin mining around the world, roughly 3% of the, you know, and we use 2.5 times the power of the city of White Plains, New York, right? Like, and so the amount of energy that you would need to break that system would be astronomical. And there's no company and there's no entity and there's no bank in the world that wouldn't already have been taken over by malicious actors in quantum computing. Bitcoin would be the last thing to fall, just based on, again, the amount of energy used to secure that network. Finance would be gone, militaries would be gone, you know, the Pentagon would be gone, everybody would be gone. You know, Bitcoin would be the last to fall, and I believe that with every aspect of my heart and soul.
Well, Eric, we were supposed to be speaking for 30 minutes. That's by my judgment, we've been speaking for 50 minutes now. That's quite a lot of time inflation, which I guess any Bitcoin enthusiast would say is another reason to buy Bitcoin, right? It's inflation. But thank you so much for your time, for your generosity, for fielding all of the questions from myself and from everyone here in the audience.
Thank you. UAE, we love you very much, and I can't wait to see you all very soon. And on behalf of our family, on behalf of myself, on behalf of the entire Trump organization, thank you very much for having me. And look for the building on Sheikh Zayed. You're gonna love what I'm building.
You can show us in person next time.
I can't wait. Thanks, Joumanna. Thanks for the kindness, guys.
Thank you.
See you later.